Hey, what's up everyone? James here, coming at you with another video from Go Beyond Comics. Today we are continuing our journey into the IDW Transformerverse. We are covering one of my favorite bots, the fastest bot alive, Blurr. So let's get right into this story. So it opens with Blurr winning yet again another race, still holding his record as the undefeated champion of Cybertron's racing circuits. We learn very quickly here that Blurr doesn't care that much about his own pit crew. You know, he's just obsessed with winning, and that's all he cares about. He doesn't even remember his lead pit tech, Piston's name, and mistakenly calls him Parton, or Parton, however way you want to pronounce it. Blurr tells the pit crew he intends to celebrate this victory with them, but when he reveals he intends to celebrate it at this club called The Circle, the pit crew knows they won't be able to get in because is a club that's only reserved for the elite of Cybertron, which Blurr knows, and that's what's messed up about it. Now, as Blurr's about to enter the circle, he speaks to this reporter here before entering the club, and the reporter asks him, you know, what's your stance on the political upheaval on Cybertron? And Blurr just replies, you know, I don't watch the news, I am the news. And that just shows you how much Blurr is consumed by his own fame, that he's like not even aware of the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons that's going on, which will become more evident as the story progresses, so look out. Now, as he's in the circle enjoying drinks, Fast Track here, who's with him, points out these two bots sitting in the corner here, getting fried off of what's called simultronics. It's basically a device that gives you a drugging sensation and puts your mind in a simulated reality. It honestly kind of reminded me of Jim Carrey's The Riddler's TV box in Batman Forever. God, I love that movie. But what happens next is the beginning of Blurr's life changing forever. The racing track one night is bombed. Now, it isn't outright said that the Decepticons are the ones responsible, just kind of implied here. Blurr gets pissed when he finds out from the manager of the races that because of the bombing, the new Prime, Zeta, who we met in the Origin of Orion packs, he ordered the shutdown of the races in the name of public safety. Then from there, later in the race circuit locker rooms, Blurr runs into Piston, his lead pit tech, surprised to see that he's cleared out his stuff, and you know, tries to tell Piston that the races might come back, but Piston replies that he's done with racing and joining the Autobots. He then tries to tell Blurr that Cybertron is changing and soon he'll need to choose a side. But Blurr just kind of blows him off, saying, you know, I don't need you or your group's help. Races are over, but the parties aren't. So you can see that that's all he cares about. From there, Blurr goes to the circle, shocked to see that it's empty. But the bartender tells him that it's because the city is a war zone right now. Blurr just ignores him and asks for a drink, looking to drown his sorrows. And he looks at the simultronic, you know, beginning to consider using it. But then he's interrupted by someone I didn't expect, Starscream, who tells Blurr that's for the weak and presents himself as a friend. And through this conversation as they're talking, you know, we learn why Blurr loves racing. When asked by Starscream, what do you really care about? Blurr replies, racing. The crowds, when I can feel them behind me, the lights, the roar, and that moment, that one single moment when I know what I'm doing matters. When you think about it, what Blurr cares about is his achievements, the feeling of achieving something and how that makes him feel and other bots feel. Now, Starscream points that out, but he missed something in what Blurr said, and it will come into play later. Just wait and see. But this is where the Decepticon sales pitch begins. He tells Blurr that his devotion to victory on the racetrack is a great quality, that the Decepticons admire that and believe the strong should rule, and tells Blurr that he is strong and superior to everyone around him. If he would only rebel against the Autobots who threaten to take away his dream, that the Decepticons could use someone like him. And as Starscream walks away, he says, rule or serve. You'll know what to do when the time comes. Later, leaving the circle, Blurr begins to drive away, but he ends up entering into a war zone. He ends up being saved by Ironhide here, who I'm very glad to see. They head into cover, and this is kind of crazy. Blurr sees the dead bodies of Piston and Fast Track here. Now, we're not told if Fast Track joined the Autobots or, like Blurr, just accidentally got caught up in the conflict. The writer kind of plays it fast and loose here, and if you guys notice, this story kind of like goes by pretty fast. But anyways, Blurr ends up meeting Orion, and when Orion begins to compliment Blurr, kind of giving him his own sales pitch here, Blurr just stops him and is like, enough, I'm done with people telling me who or what I am. Now, this bot here, not sure who this is, chimes in saying to Orion, you're wasting your time, he's pampered, arrogant little upstart. However, Orion disagrees with this bot, and what he says to Blurr next shows how even when Optimus was young, before he was a Prime, he was wise. He says to Blurr that those around you might see you as abrupt or arrogant, but that's just a byproduct of your gift. You're able to process life and death decisions at lightning speed. I envy your confidence to do so, and how your kind rarely shows hesitation. But Blurr replies, yeah, I'm so wonderful, but tell that to all the people who I ignored. And Prime says it's only arrogance if that strength and focus are turned inwards. Dude, when I read this, I was like, wow, I love Orion. This is a Blurr issue, but it made me love Orion even more. Orion then explains that the Decepticon group he and his teammates are fighting is an assassination squad, whose target is Zeta Prime. And his team can't communicate with HQ because the Decepticons are using what Orion says is a powerful communications bot. We all know that sound wave. He's blocking all the transmissions in the area. He tells Blurr that he is the only one fast enough to break through the Decepticons and warn Prime. However, even after hearing all that, Blurr is still refusing to help. Now, remember when I said that Starscream missed something vital in what Blurr said earlier? It's coming into play now. Orion says to Blurr that that old life you love so much, the golden age of Cybertron, is dying. The people are lost and the Decepticons are taking advantage of it. All those times in the arena, was it the victories that kept you going, or was it the chance to constantly inspire others to strive for more? You can still be an inspiration, Blurr. This is why I love Orion so much, because he figured it out. That puzzle that was Blurr. From there, completely changes Blurr's mind. He ends up doing it. He just takes off without a second, blasting through the Decepticon squad and remembering the reason, what he said to Starscream earlier, why he loved racing. And he says the feeling of what he is doing really matters. That is the end, my friends. Honestly, there's not a lot of action in this story, but it's a character focused issue. It's just so damn good. I loved it. Next up, we're gonna do Autocracy, and I can't wait to cover it. Other than that, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. I greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts on this issue and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Other than that, have an awesome day, take care, and always remember every day to go beyond.